Hello, Young. You're up next.
Hey, Bart.
How's it
How's it
going,
going?
Young?
Good, good.
Get a hand for us?
I do. This one's from Foxwoods
Uh,
25.
okay, Fox. And that is a place where I have not been down to since I've come back to live on the East Coast. By the way, I plan on playing at Chasers tomorrow, their big half PLO, half no limit game,
Okay.
which I've heard on Tuesdays, which I don't usually get a chance to do because I usually release the flagship podcasts on Tuesdays. But the last few weeks, I've been releasing the flagship podcast later. So I think what I'm going to do is put a session in and then do a HA review on Wednesday, the 28th. And then the following week, while I'm at the series, will be part two. So that will be the plan. People told me that the game starts around 2 p.m. and it's big at Chasers. And usually they don't get big games, but that's my plan for tomorrow. So Foxwoods 2-5, what is the buy-in spread here?
2.5 max buy-in is 1K now. That's a relatively recent change.
And I've heard that it's kind of slow over there. Is this the biggest game that goes?
No, and the reason it is slow is because of
Mohican?
Mohegan's like
Yeah.
20 minutes away, and Encore kind of takes away the people in the middle. So, yeah, Mohegan's kind of the place to be in regards to like 2.5.
It's interesting. I've never, ever played at Mohican. I don't know how it is as a room, but I've never been there. Check it out sometime.
Yeah, it's a good place. I like it a lot.
Yeah. All right. So Foxwoods 2-5, 1K max. How deep are you guys?
Effective is 1700. Let's see.
Young, you go by Young?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember your hand off the top of my head. I just remember, like, I don't remember the details of it. I just remember that it's the best one today. So you got a lot to
Good,
live up
good.
to.
Yeah,
You got a lot to live up to.
I did. No pressure, no pressure.
I got it rated in my notes as a 10 out of 10. Okay, so
Good,
2-5, 1700 effective with a 1K buy-in, okay? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a it's a seven-handed hand. So
Okay.
Pre-flop is just everyone limps. So UTG +1, hijack, cutoff button, small blind completes, and pures in the big blind. I check it with pocket deuces. That's
So
deuce
hero,
hearts and deuce of clubs.
so hero in big blind with deuce, deuce of hearts, deuce of clubs.
Mm-hmm.
So you literally have 6 people or 5 people. Actually, no, 6 people that limp in front of you because it's 7 way. How common is that at 2-5 here?
Not a lot. That's it was just this one hand. It stuck out in my mind. It was just one of those like I don't, that even for low stakes like limping and getting in there seven-handed, that doesn't really happen. So
Now I will say I got to bring this up. I don't know if Nate is in the live chat, but he did tell me say that sometimes he actually goes with an approach. I don't 100% agree with it, but I think it's of note. Of course, Nate Schmidt, one of our content creators, where he likes to actually try to drive the field out with small pairs from early position so that he doesn't, so of the reverse implied odds and not getting overset. But I think I might be screwing it up. I think is it the ones that are in the middle? I don't know if it's the ones. No, I think it might still be small pairs. I mean, I would almost always check here. There just is something to be said that sometimes with small pairs, the deeper you are, you can get some reverse implied odds.
exactly.
Like I said, I love limp pots because I think that there's a lot of things that you can do that I talk about in Crush Light Poker, like attacking limp pots, attacking textures. I tend to like to have more sort of barreling equity, but I will say though, if you're in there cheap with a small pair, then the key is if you do flop a set to maximize. And then whenever, hopefully this is not common, when you do flop a set and you're not good, can you get away from it? This is where we talk about when you're playing infinitely deep, because there were a lot of deep games on Hustler Casino Live. There was that $1 million game. And the worst thing that you can do as a player is buy in deep if you are not capable of building a pot up with a nut versus second nut hand, and also not capable of folding big hands when you have second nut versus nut. Or you can say very good versus second, very good, right? In both of those scenarios, if you can't maximize and you have trouble folding big hands, then you shouldn't play deep, because then you put yourself at a real disadvantage. I just wanted to digress. Okay, so 6 limbs, deuce, deuce in the big blind, okay? Yep.
Yeah, my first question was going to be, do you like ever squeeze here? I decided not to, mainly because of all the reasons you said. I don't want to get set over, set it, and not be able to toss it. So,
Well,
uh,
that's the question, as T Grupta says in the live chat. Like, are you, if you raise, are you going to get 3-3 through 6-6 to fold? Because there's a couple of callers, and once a limp comes in, there's a cascade effect. Personally, I would check here a lot. I wouldn't concern myself with that.
okay,
Yeah.
cool. Oh, so straightforward.
Yeah.
We flop ace of diamonds, jack of clubs, and deuce of spades.
All right. So ace of diamonds, jack of clubs, deuce of spades. So this is what we're talking about, like maximizing here too. A couple things going on here. Obviously, the rainbow board. You wouldn't think that someone had a high ace here because of the fact that of all pre-flop. It doesn't mean that they necessarily don't have ace X. And you kind of get into this whole thing where because you're so deep, sometimes you have to do things to manipulate pot size here. By the way, now I'm not really concerned about being overset, right?
Mm-hmm,
You wouldn't
mm-hmm.
think so because of the setup
Exactly.
pre-flop. I mean, you basically have the nuts here. Unless like, under the gun was like trapedy with ace ace. But, a lot of times I in sort of mastering limp pots, crushing limp pots, I kind of say like, I want to take the line for max value that has the least amount of fold equity. And Nate says it in a different way in our training material. He says when the value of a fold is low, what that means is you don't want the folds, right? Here, you don't want the folds. So a lot of times I would advocate like just leading out because that is the most likely scenario where you're going to get action from some of the weaker portions of somebody sort of connecting with this board, like Jack X, a weak ace. Whereas if you were to check raise, some people might just fold that out, right? Now, with that being said, though, ace high boards are a little bit different than, say, if the board was like 9 deuce 3, because an ace will continue to always be top pair. So if you have a guy bet out here with ace 9 and you check raise him, he's more likely to call, I feel like, with ace 9 on that board, on ace jack deuce, than he is to call with ace 9 on 9 deuce 3. The reason why is because ace 9 will not be the same hand strength by the river on 9 deuce 3, whereas ace 9 will always be top pair here. So personally, I would think that someone's going to bet here with a bunch of people in the hand. So I would probably check and go for a modest check raise, but I could get on board with just like leading out for, well, the pot's only like 30, like leading out for 20 or 25 or something like that.
Yeah, pot's 35,
35,
and
yeah.
that's exactly what I want to do. I'm building a pot now. That's what I reason. If no one has anything, then so be it. And I also do reason I have the best hand. I'm losing to aces and jacks, which no one has. So my intent is to lead out. It's a small pot, right? Small blind does that for me. He leads
Oh, okay.
for 35.
So small blind leads for 35.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So small blind's a first act out of 7 people, and now do I want to flat or do I want to raise?
Here's the thing, Young. I mean, for the most part in live poker, I don't really like slow playing. I don't advocating slow playing all that much because I think the best way to get the most amount of value is to obviously just kind of fast play. Avoid action killing cards, get the most amount of money. And here I'm a little bit torn because I could make a case here where calling might be better than raising if all the players behind you you're just going to drive out ace X that aren't two pair. I mean, that's kind of a disaster for you if you raise and, ace 6, ace 7, all those hands just sort of fold out that would have called if you had called. On the flip side to that, though, what do you think the minimum sort of hand that the small blind's leading out, though? So shouldn't that be somewhat strong?
That's what I'm thinking. Like he has a hand that can withstand a 3-bet. That was my thinking. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but if someone's leading out into a million people, like they have something. They have a hand that's not going to fold to a single raise. So because of that, I make it 100. And
So you make a small raise.
yeah,
Yeah. By the way, so going along with, and again, another thing that I say is like whenever you ever have the inclination to slow play at the small stakes, just either bet small or raise small. I can actually get on board with this. I might have made it smaller though. If you were going to raise, I might have made it like 80 because I'm trying to not fold out ace X behind. When you go to close to 3X here, it's just a disaster if ace X sort of folds out. I'm reading here too in Reed Robbins says, I would flat here, keeps in a hand like Jack X, even though bet call from the two blinds, right? Look how strong that is, right? Small blind bets, big blind calls. Jack X should pretty much never overcall. You do see it at the small stakes, and that could be something where if you allow a hand like Jack X, right, in there and then they hit trips, you could win a big pot that way. So there's something for that to be being said here too. Now, if you did call also too, you always have to be very, very aware of Broadway gut shots. Like I would not be going nuts
Right.
if a king or a queen came. So I don't mind your raise. I think I might have just bumped it up to like 75 instead because I just want the ace X's to fold. So I think for me, it's a call or a small raise here.
You mean you don't want the ace X's to fold, right?
Right. I don't want the ace X's
Yeah,
to fold.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was, as soon as I like made the bet, I was like, what was that a little too much? It folds around to the button, a third player in their hand who cold calls. So
Okay. Well, there you go.
Yeah. So we get a cold call.
And then the small blind calls too.
He completes. I was like, is he going to go nuts and three bet? But no, we're three handed to the turn.
So for the most part here, so you put in 300, so the pot's like 335. So for the most part here, you still have the nuts. And what I mean by that is logical nuts based upon logical hand reading, even to a more extreme scenario here, because the button should never be over limping with aces or jacks, right? Over five. And same thing with a small blind. So I would always go to the felt with your hand no matter what, if it was like blank blank. You know what I'm saying? Like if it came out like 6-7, you can never fold, right? Logically, right now. So 335 to the turn, okay.
Yeah, and to echo what you said, no one has ace or jacks. Like maybe there was a chance of someone limping with it, but not anymore. Not from the button and small blind.
Yeah.
So 335, their turn card is the jack of spades.
Interesting. I mean, it's kind of interesting. I don't think that really should change anything. I just want to confirm the board because it is Broadway, right? Ace of diamonds, jack of clubs, deuce of spades. Turn is the jack of spades. And what I mean by that is that now that we did raise on the flop to 100, we really shouldn't be seeing any naked jack X, right? Like king jack, jack 10. Not that the small blind would really lead out with that or overcall, but the big blind shouldn't really be calling with that. The only issue now is you lose to ace jack. Which maybe the button could have if you didn't raise with it, maybe some of the time. So, your hand was very, very good to now maybe you're losing, sort of some of the time. Some of the time.
So certainly, I don't really know how to feel about this card. I wanted, like, I would have been happier with an ace on the turn, not the jack, because
or you would have got more action, right, from trip aces.
Certainly, yeah. Now, like I can imagine an ace like leading and then calling like a.
I mean, that's what we're saying. Like we're like you raising to 100, you certainly can get somebody to call with top pair, and then if an ace comes on the turn, that turns into trips. But here, as we keep saying, no one really should have a naked jack here. So the card's probably worse for you because it makes it less likely that someone's going to call down with just ace X, and now sometimes you lose to ace jack, right? So, I mean, I would much rather see any other card with the exception of Broadway. I don't want to see a king. I don't want to see a 10, and I wouldn't want to see a jack. I would rather see any other card, So we get a check to you or what?
Yep, checks me, and I don't know about my sizing, but I go quarter pot. I just want to squeeze as much value out. I want an ace to call, but not be afraid of the jack. So I make an 80.
Interesting. I don't know what to think about this. I understand your logic here, right? Because you don't want to get ace X to fold now, right? If you start going crazy. And you start to think about, like, if I start going too large, am I only getting action from something that is worse than, that is actually better than me? I mean, I definitely understand your logic. Personally, I might have just gone like 1/3. I think it's the same thing. You get a little bit more value than 25%, but I do understand your logic here. So you go 80, okay.
The button calls, and the small blind, who's the main villain in this hand, he check raises really small to 180.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Really small, huh?
Yeah, he just main clicks at 180.
God, that's so nut. That's like so nutted. That is so nutted. in the sense that what I mean by that nutted is like he's just making an amount where he's just trying to get more money in, right, into the pot here.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, the only thing I would say is that, wow, what is he? Could he ever? I don't know. If you say he's a solid guy, he should never really have just a single jack that leads into 5 people on the flop, right, and then call a raise.
Yeah, but I never said that for what it's worth.
Oh, okay. Oh, so he's not solid.
Yeah.
I mean, there's occasionally if a guy's not solid, he might maybe once. I just although I don't necessarily see people, you know, lead here on an ace high board with a jack. Like if you told me that this guy was a really good like winning player, here's the setup. If the small blind was a really good winning player and the button was somewhat fishy, I could actually see folding the turn. I actually think now, with that being said, though, you'd have to say, well, is the small blind, is he just over limping in the small blind pre? This is a good exercise in hand reading, right? Because he would have completed with ace jack off. And then would he just call your raise on the flop instead of bet 3-bet, against with a fishy guy in between? I mean, the pot's, I think you have to call here for 100 more to just kind of see what happens, but I don't love it. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I do. I end up flat calling. I just like throughout the entire hand. I just could not imagine small blind like coming in with a ace jack.
Now there is another hand you lose to as well, which is jack deuce, right? So you've got deuce of hearts, deuce of clubs, and we're really getting into the weeds here. There is a suited jack deuce combo that's possible, right? There's no diamond out there, so you could have jack deuce of diamonds, and then people would complete with that. So there's another hand you lose to there too. Hero calls, and then what does the button do?
Button gets out of the way. He folds.
So the button folds. So now you put in 360 and 80, 440. So it's what, 775, something like that?
Yep, that's what I have to. 775.
775. Okay. All right. So let's go to
the river. We get the ace of clubs.
Oh, now I remember. Why this is the best hand. Right. The river is the ace of clubs.
Yeah. So by boats getting smaller and smaller, and Villain slows down and checks, which I imagined he'd do with like all his hands. If he has aces full, he's going to check. Tell me if I'm wrong, but like just because he's getting no value except from a bluff.
I don't know. Actually, I think that happens way less than you think. If this guy check raised with ace jack on the turn small, I don't think he's checking all that much at the end, because your hand isn't really a whole lot of, well, first of all, he chops with any other ace, right? But your hand isn't like a whole lot of like missed draws here. What I find interesting about this is that if he somehow had a jack only, like if he somehow was only like did what we were talking about and check raised a jack here on the turn, I think you could get him off of that. I find it very, very peculiar that he's checked the river now when I don't think he's checking a ton of ace jack here. So it's just like one of these things where how often does he have a naked jack here and how often can we get him to fold? Like, I don't think you ever win if you check back. Now, just because you check back and you never win doesn't necessarily give you the green light to bluff, like some people think. Like, they're like, oh, I have no showdown value, I have to bluff, right? That's not necessarily true. However, I wonder how often somebody has ace jack here, and I do, again, if you think he's not all that solid of a player. Oh, by the way, too, how about jack deuce?
Exactly.
Right,
yeah.
So
yeah.
Jack deuce is actually a hand that would kind of make. Now there's only one combo of that, right? There's only one combo of jack deuce of diamonds, but now that the aces come out, there's less combos of ace jack now too, right? I mean, there's only 4, right?
Certainly, yeah.
So I think that there might be enough time when he might have jack deuce and maybe once in a while where he's got let's say that he's got jack deuce and then maybe once in a while he's got a jack here for like some random jack for like 2 combos. You take that and then you look at the 4 possible combos of ace jack that he can have, and then you can start to say, how often does ace jack play it this way with a check on the river? And if you can kind of get down to like the 50% or less, you can see, I think I bluff here. The more I think about this one, the more I think I bluff. The weird part of this, though, is that it's not like you can go like 200
Right.
You got to bet enough where a guy will fold a jack, right?
Right. Right.
So maybe that number is like 400 here.
Oh my God, that's exactly what I did. I made it 400.
Now, some people are saying shove, shove, shove. Why would,
I'm gonna get snapped off if I
yeah,
shove.
why would they? Well, no, it's just why would you shove? You're trying to bet an amount that will get a jack to fold, right? Because an ace is not folding. If he's got ace jack, he's not folding, right? So I don't know why you would shove. Now people are saying jack deuce is not folding at this level. Really, on ace jack deuce jack ace, that was kind of my first inclination is 400. Again, you want to find the number where you can get jack x to fold here. So now people
Yeah.
saying Zebo theorem too. Obviously, Zebo theorem means that no one will ever fold a full house. That's not always correct. Meaning even this guy with even though he's got bottom full house. But so you bet 400, huh?
I did. Pot was
Uh,
775. I bet just I reason half pot. I want to make it look like an ace. I bet
uh,
400 and got a tank fold.
and got a tank fold. Wow. Did you ever find out what the guy had?
No, I asked. I asked if you had an ace, didn't you? He said no, but I think he was just kind of saving face.
You asked
The
if he
way
had what?
I think he was just saving face when he said he didn't have an ace. He went into the
Well, obviously he
tank.
didn't have an ace, right? The board is
Sorry,
ace, jack,
sorry.
deuce, jack, ace, right?
Excuse me, I misspoke. He said he didn't have a jack.
Oh, that he didn't have a jack. Oh,
But for for what it's worth, he could be just saying that. But from the way he went into the tank and was kind of like grimacing, it was kind of transparent that he felt he got counterfeited.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's interesting. Now, obviously, again, it's a weird one because yes, shoving probably does fold out a jack more often than betting 400. But the problem is that you also have other hands that are in the guy's range, which is ace X, which is going to call off anything. So you can't put yourself into that position. So it's not as simple as saying, oh, shoving will get jack X to fold. I should shove because that will get more folds than if I bet 400. The problem is he arrives here with some ace X that's 100% call and you're losing in your entire stack. So it's quite a complex situation at the end,
Yeah.
So
Outside of ace jack, what kind of ace X can he get here with, especially with the check raise?
I don't think that he has any ace X besides ace jack as played. I mean, what, like check raising ace deuce? No, I don't think he has any ace X. But the point though is that he still has some ace jack once in a while, So anyways, it's an interesting hand. Thank you very much for the call.
Absolutely.